Okay. All right, everybody. Good evening. And I'm going to let you guys, I'm going to wait a while so I can give you guys a chance to come in. Oops. Okay. Okay. Okay, then. So let me go ahead and get started because I see one person coming in. So until some more people come in, let me go ahead and get started. All right, 2 people in. 3. All right. So let me get on this topic. Tonight's topic is a very topic that I never really touched on before. Like just in, I mean, I have talked about it in some of my videos, but I have never touched on it just by itself. So this topic is just something very unique to me. And I think that it's just very important that we really talk about this because we all can relate to this, or we have family members that can relate to this subject matter. And it's called the love child. So what we gonna talk about is family dynamic and structure, right? But we gotta put in the topic of the love child because the love child tends to be and it's not really a good term per se. To be a love child is to be an illegitimate child. And I'm gonna go into detail what illegitimate child is. So I would like to start off reading the lyrics by the Supreme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the lyrics. This song came out in 1968. It was called The Love Child. It was sung by Diana Ross and the Supreme. And wow, I must say that it's very touchy. It's a very touchy subject. It's like a very sensitive subject to talk about. But I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So the intro is, timid slum. You think that I don't feel love, but what I feel for you is real love. In those eyes I see reflected, a hurt, scorn, rejected. Love child, never meant to be. Love child, born in poverty. Love child, never meant to be. Love child, take a look at me. Started my life in an old, cold, rundown, timid slum, which is what we know today as the projects. My father left. He never even married mom. I shared the guilt my mama knew, so afraid that others knew I had no name. All this love were oh my goodness. This love were contemplating is worth the pain of waiting. Well, only end up hating the child we may be creating. Oh, give me a second, you guys. All right, love child, never meant to be. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. Love child, scorned by society. Love child, always second best. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. Love child, different from the rest. Hold on, just a little bit longer. Baby, hold on, just a little bit longer. Baby. I started school in a worn, torn dress that somebody threw out. I knew the way it felt to always live in doubt. To be without the simple things. So afraid my friends would see the guilt in me. And I don't think that I don't need you. Don't think I don't want to please you. But no child of mine will be bearing the name of shame I've been wearing. Love child, never quite as good. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. Afraid, ashamed, misunderstood. Just a little bit longer, love child. But I'll always love you. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. I'll always love you. Just a little bit longer, love child. I'll always love you. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. Always love you. Just a little bit longer, love child. Always love you. Wait, won't you wait now? Hold on. Always love you just a little bit longer, love child. And Well, that's the end of the song. A very powerful lyrics. The song came out in September 1968. Now, just remember that time period. That was the time where the whole liberation movement came about. And there was people that was more political. So during those period of time in the 60s and 70s, they made a lot of political lyrics. You know, things that deal to civil rights, deal with black issues, dealing with women issues, things of that nature. So, as I read these lyrics, it's very telling in itself. Especially when the mother when she goes in details about starting my life in an old, cold, rundown, timid slum. Basically what she's saying is, I used to live in the projects, in the rundown neighborhood. My father left. He never even married mom. In other words, when my mom was pregnant, my dad was no longer around. I shared the guilt my mama knew, so afraid that others knew I had no name. So in other words, she went through the pain, according to the lyrics, of what her mother had to go through. Just being raised alone, being raised by a single parent. This lyric still resonates to this day. There's a lot of us who come from parents who was unmarried, or one parent happened to leave the other and moved on because they didn't want to have anything to do with that child. But we're going to get down into that later. Let me go ahead because I'm going to get a little emotional just reading those lyrics. Yeah. So, let's talk about illegitimate child. So, the illegitimate child is a child who is born to parents who are not married to each other, or who is born out of wedlock. And illegitimate child may also be as a bastard or a love child. Perhaps one of the most famous illegitimate children in Hollywood was the love child born to actor and the former governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger fathered a child with his housekeeper while he was married to his wife, Maria Shriver. To explore this concept, consider the following illegitimate child definition. And this comes from legaldictionary.net. So let's get into the topic about legitimacy. I had it on here. Oh my goodness. Give me one moment, you guys. So I'm going to read about legitimacy. Oh my goodness. Okay. No, I don't think that's it. Okay, here it goes. All right, so let me go ahead and read it. Legitimacy, family law. All right, and this can be found on wikipedia.org. Legitimacy in traditional Western common law is the status of a child born to parents who are legally married to each other, and of a child conceived before parents obtain a legal divorce. Conversely, illegitimacy or bastardly has been the status of a child born outside a marriage, such a child being known as a bastard, love child, or illegitimate when such a distinction have been made from other children. In Scots law, that's Scottish, the terminology of natural son or natural daughter has the same implication. The prefix "fizz" adds to a surname, Fizzboy, sometimes denoted that the child's parents were not married at the time of birth. Depending on local legislation, legitimacy can affect a child's right of inheritance to the putative father's estate, meaning that the father the word putative father is somebody who could be the possibly be the father, or may not be the father. So it's questionable. So that means that man is considered or might be the biological father of that child. And the child's right to bear the father's surname or heredity title. Illegitimacy has also had consequences for the mother's and child's right to support from the putative father. The importance of legitimacy have decreased considerably in Western countries with the increased economic independence of women, the sexual revolution of the 1960s and 1970s, the fall of totalitarian regime, and declining influence of Christian churches on family life. Birth outside of marriage represents the majority in the countries in Western Europe and in former European colonies. In many Western-derived culture, stigma based on parents' marital status and use of the word bastard are now considered offensive. So, basically what it's saying, during that time, if you was born to two parents who were not married, your chances of inheriting property, and particularly the fathers, you was not able to get it because your mother was not married to your father. So by the mother not being married to the father, it was hard for that child, that illegitimate child or the love child, to get the properties or get the resources or even get support from that father. Because the fact that the father is not legally married to the mother, or the child was born out of wedlock. And so that's the effect. And this is why this right here will really, it breaks up the family dynamic, because what you have is now a jealousy, because one child happens to be the child that's born out of wedlock, or the children born out of wedlock, while the other children, they were born into marriage, but they get all the rights and they gain more resources than those who parents wasn't married. So you have what you call a sibling rivalry, because not only you're trying to fight for your father's love, and you want your father there, but you also want his financial support, and you can't get that financial support. And this was during the time period back in the day. However, some people still carry on this ideology, although things have changed now. But you got people that still carry on that mentality. But we're gonna get into that. Let's get into the concept about the law and the non-marital births and the history, and that's it. So let's go ahead and get into the law. What is it? England Statute of Marital 1235 stated, regarding illegitimacy, he is a bastard that is born before the marriage of his parent. This definition also applied to situations when a child's parent court could not marry, as when one or both were already married, or when the relationship was incestuous. Wow. The Poor Law of 1576 formed the basis of English bastardly law. Its purpose was to punish a bastard child's mother and putative father, and to relieve the parish from the cost of supporting mother and child. By an act of 1576, 18 Elizabeth C. 3, it was ordered that bastards should be supported by the putative fathers, though bastardly orders in the quarter session date from before this date. If the genitor could be found, then he was put under very great pressure to accept responsibility and to maintain the child. Interesting. All right. So I'm gonna skip down a little bit, and we're gonna go. Let's see. Let's skip down a little bit. All right. In the United States, in the early 1970s, a series of Supreme Court decisions held that the most common law disabilities imposed upon illegitimacy were invalid as violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Still, children born out of wedlock may not be eligible for certain federal benefits, automatic naturalization when the father becomes a U.S. citizen unless the child has been legitimized in the appropriate jurisdiction. That's deep. That's really deep. And speaking on birth certificates, I don't know about many of you, but if your parents, it was back in the day. Now, I don't know if the law still applies to this day, but I know back then, if your parents wasn't married, guess whose name didn't go on the birth certificate? Guess whose name did not go on the birth certificate? If your parents was not married, your father's name did not go on that birth certificate. Only the mother. So, because the mother was classified being a single mother or a single parent. That's what she was classified as. So, if she was not married to that father, his name did not go on the birth certificate. His name did not go on the birth certificate at all. Now, picture that. So, if somebody was to try to look up information about you, right? Or if somebody came across your certificate and it only just have the mother's name and not the father's name, then it says something. That means that people gonna automatically assume that, okay, you come from a single parent household. But you may not come from a single parent. You may have both of your parents together within that same home, but because your father did not marry your mother, your mother was considered as a single parent. Basically, she was considered as unwed. So daddy's name couldn't go on that birth certificate. And let me see. Okay, and let me go down to non-marital births. So I'm going to read a little bit about this, and then I'm going to skip because there's a lot of information. The portion of children born outside of marriage is rising in all EU countries, which is European countries, North America, and Australia. In Europe, besides the low level of fertility rates, the delay of motherhood, another factor that now characterizes fertility is the growing percentage of births outside marriage. In the EU, this phenomenon has been on the rise in recent years in almost every country and in 7 countries, mostly in Northern Europe. It already accounts for the majority of births. In 2009, 41% of children born in the United States were born to unmarried mothers, a significant increase from the 5% of half a century earlier. That includes 73% of non-Hispanic black children, 53% of Hispanic children of all races, and 29% of non-Hispanic white children. In April 2009, the National Center for Health Statistics announced that nearly 40% of American infants born in 2007 were born to an unwed mother. That of 4.3 million children, 1.7 million were born to unmarried parents, a 25% increase from 2002. Most births to teenagers in the U.S., 86% in 2007, are non-marital. In 2007, 60% of births to women between the ages 20 and 24, and nearly 1/3 of births to women between the ages 25 and 29 were non-marital. In 2007, teenagers accounted for just 23% of non-marital births, down steeply from 50% in 1970. So here in the United States, there's a lot of high number of teen pregnancy. And the people that make up the highest is African Americans. 73%. So most of the teenagers are not married. So they're having sex before they get into a legal relationship, which is marriage. So that's why you have a lot of teen pregnancy on the rise. And then it goes back to many of them not being taught about responsibility at that particular age. They're not being taught how to, they're not being properly educated. So this is where you have, this goes back to the lack of rite of passage. So when you don't have the parent that's teaching you things, you're going to continue to repeat what they have done. And then it's going to become a generational crisis, an issue. Okay? So, in reality, altogether, I am for a two-parent household. I am for a mother and father. But we know that the reality is every child is not going to have both their parents, especially the father. And because it comes to a situation where the dad done had a one-night stand or a jump off with the mother, or that mother had a child out of rape, and then get to a point where daddy disappeared, or daddy does not want to have anything to do with that baby because he feels like the baby is not his, or because his purpose was not to get the woman pregnant, but just get a nut. And that was his whole thing. So yeah, let's continue on. So I'm not finna read all of this, like I said. Okay, let's look up covert illegitimacy. Covert illegitimacy is a situation which arises when someone who is presumed to be a child's father or mother is in fact not the biological father or mother. Frequency as high as 30% are sometimes assumed in the media, but research by sociologist Michael Gladden traced these overestimates back to an informal remark at a 1972 conference. The detection of unsuspected illegitimacy can occur in the context of medical genetic screening, in genetic family name research, and in immigration testing. Such studies shows that covert illegitimacy is in fact less than 10% among the sample African population, less than 5% among the sample Native American and Polynesian population, less than 2% of the sample Middle Eastern population, and generally between 1 and 2% among European sample. So someone who is presumed, and if you presume mean that person is thought to be the child's father or the biological parents, and it turns out to be that they're not. So you have people that steps in and be a part of somebody's life or claim the person as their child, even if, because they have that generosity and they want to take on that responsibility of being a parent to that kid. So we all grew up where we have stepmoms, stepdads, adoptive parents that took us in because our biological parents was nowhere to be around, or they didn't want to have anything to do with raising children. And that's one of the reasons why you have what's it called? Extended families. You got extended families, meaning that you got people who are not biologically related to you, but they act in as family members. They take care of you, and they'll, take on the responsibility as such. Okay, let me read this. Where it says causes for rise in non-marital births. In many countries, there has been a dissociation between marriage and fertility, with the two no longer being closely associated, with births to unmarried couples as well as childless married couples becoming more common and more socially acceptable. Contribution to these have been made by the weakening of social and legal norms that regulate people's personal lives and relations, especially in regard to marriage, secularization, and decreased church control of reproduction, increased participation of women in the labor force, changes in meaning of marriage, risk reduction, individualism, changes views on female sexuality, and availability of contraception. The new concepts have emerged, such as that of reproductive rights, though these concepts have not been accepted by all cultures. Under the notion of reproductive and sexual rights, individuals, not the state, church, community, etc., shall decide whether and when individuals shall have children, their number and spacing, the circumstances under which individuals will or will not be sexually active, and their choice of intimate partners and type of relationships. Okay. And here's the history. So the history goes like this. Certainty of paternity has been considered important in a wide range of eras and cultures, especially when inheritance and citizenship were at stake, making the tracking of a man's estate and genealogy a central part of what defines a legitimate birth. The ancient Latin dictum Marta semper certa est. The mother is always certain while the father is not. So in our term, the mother is always certain while the father is not. Mama's baby, daddy's maybe. That's where that term mama's baby, daddy's maybes come from. The mother is always certain, but the father is always not. Emphasizes the dilemma. Okay, let's skip it. In many societies, people born out of wedlock did not have the same rights of inheritance as those within, and in some societies, even the same civil rights. In the United Kingdom and the United States, as late as the 1960s, and in certain social strata, even up to today, non-marital birth has carried a social stigma. In previous centuries, unwed mothers were forced by social pressure to give their children up for adoption. In other cases, non-marital children have been reared by grandparents or married relatives as the sisters, brothers, or cousins of the unwed mothers. In national jurisdiction, the status of a child as a legitimate or illegitimate heir could be changed in either direction under the civil law. A legislative act could deprive a child of legitimacy. Conversely, a marriage between the previous unmarried parents, usually within a specified time, such as a year, could retroactively legitimate a child's birth. Fathers of illegitimate children often did not incur compatible seizure or legal responsibility due to social attitudes about sex, the nature of social reproduction, and difficulty of determining paternity with certainty. And thank goodness that we got paternity tests today, because that would eliminate all the confusion, right? But it's up to the parents to make sure that they can make the arrangement to go get these testing done. So it's not an excuse where you can't go get a paternity test, because you can always request it. You can request for the test to be done and taking place. So, that's why science is important, because we in the age of scientific technology. We in the age of technology. So it's important for us to know and study science. We may not know every single thing, but learn as much as you can. Learn the important components of it. The main points that you really need to know. Fathers of illegitimate children often did... Okay, I read that part. By final third of the 20th century, in the United States, all the states had adopted uniform laws that codified the responsibility of both parents to provide support and care for a child, regardless of the parents' marital status, and gave non-marital status as well as adopted parents equal rights to inherit their parents' property. In the early 1970s, a series of Supreme Court decisions abolished most, if not all, of the common law disability of non-marital birth as being violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Generally speaking, in the United States, illegitimacy have been supplanted by the phrase born out of wedlock. Alright, so we'll stop right there. Again, I know it was a lot that I had to read, because see, we don't really get into depth about illegitimacy and legitimacy regarding to the child. You don't hear these type of conversations. See, when we have these type of discussion amongst ourselves, it's from an emotional standpoint. It's always from an emotional standpoint, which that's understandable, because it's a very rough topic to touch on, because you always got individuals that want to play the blame game, right? Pointing fingers at people. But we never get into the scholastic part of it. You see what I'm saying? We don't get into the actual source, the detail of what the illegitimate child is and what role does that child play. And why is that child considered to be that way? So we have to go into the origin and history and how was that done. And basically, overall, the illegitimate child at one point in time didn't have the same rights. So now, and I'm going to read about the law in Georgia, because I can't say anywhere else. So I'm going to read the law about legitimacy in the state of Georgia. But anyways, they did not get the same rights. And they did not get the same treatment. So imagine just growing up as the child of a single parent, and you come to find out that your biological parent, your other parent, happens to be a married man, or happen to be somebody that was just a random person, a rendezvous. How would that make you feel? Now, do you blame the children for having certain type of attitudes towards their father? And sometimes their mother, but in particularly their father. Because see, we don't want to have this conversation. We don't want to break this part down. It's always, especially when it comes to the topic about black men and black women's relationship, it's always the black woman's fault. The black woman's fault. The black woman's fault. The black woman's fault. When it comes down to the children. And I'm not taking away the accountability that women should have. Because there is some accountability that women have to take, especially when it comes to the role of that child. Yes, you got people that use their children as pawn. Yes, you got people that take advantage of their children. You got people that don't raise their kids at all. And you got those who mistreat them, abuse them. So I agree with that argument, but we don't want to look at the flip side of it. Because see, when we talk about the flip side, then that's when, oh, it's the welfare this. The welfare that made it where we can't be around our kids. See, the black woman make it where she doesn't want me in the kid's life. But wait a minute. Let's go back to the concept about illegitimacy. If she's trying to introduce you to your child, but you turn around, you tell her that I don't want to have anything to do with that kid, or that kid is not mine, then you can't make that argument that black women trying to keep you away from your children if you decided on your own that you don't want to have anything to do with them. Or you tell that woman to back off and don't ever come back, disappear. You destroy my family. But wait a minute, didn't you destroy your own family dynamic? I mean, because you start off having sexual relationship with this woman. Now, if you're not the father and it turns out to be that way, then that's not on your responsibility. But if you happen to be the father and it's proven, because nowadays we take paternity tests, then you can't sit here and make an argument that, oh, she never let me see my kid, I can't go around my kid. No, it's because you made the choice not to be around your child. Sometimes you make the choice that you still deny this child to this day. Even with all the paternity tests that you took, you still deny it because you don't want to have any type of attachment and additional responsibility. But see, that's the price that you have to pay when you make choices. You know? So the whole argument about black women not wanting the kids around their daddies and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, part of it's true, but the other half is not true. The other half is not true. That's part of it, but the other half is not true. So, what is she supposed to do at this point? You don't want to have anything to do with the child. You don't want the child to be a part of your family. You don't want the child to inherit nothing. So how is the child supposed to treat you once he or she meets you? How are they supposed to treat you? They supposed to automatically say, hey daddy, how you doing? No, they gonna look at you like a stranger because you looked at them like they was a stranger. You ain't been in their life. So they not gonna automatically embrace you. Right? I mean, I'm just saying, just think about that. You can't expect that child to automatically embrace you and respect you as the parent or as the head of household when you ain't never been there. And that was another term I wanted to look up real quick. Hold on. Speaking of that, while we on this topic, hold on. Let me find that term, because it was another terminology that I wanted to look up. You're welcome, sis. There was another term that I wanted. Oh, violence and honor killings. Oh, let's read this. Hold on. While births outside marriage are considered acceptable in many world regions, in some parts of the world they remain highly stigmatized. Women who have given birth under such circumstances are often subjected to violence at the hands of their families and may even become victims of so-called honor killings. An honor killing or shame killing is the murder of a member of a family due to the perpetrator's belief that the victim have brought shame or dishonor upon the family or has violated the principle of a community or a religion with and honor culture. The typical reason including divorce, separation, etc. Honor killing. Does that sound familiar? I'm going to tell you what it sounds like. In some Islamic countries, they practice this. They practice what they call honor killing. Because if the woman happens to have a child outside of her marriage, she was stoned to death. Yeah, so you still got this practice going on, and some of it is in particularly in the Islamic community. I hate to bust people bubbles. I mean, I know it's Ramadan, but let's be honest. Let's be open about that. These women may also be persecuted under laws forbidding sexual relations outside marriage and may face consequent punishment, including stoning. Exactly what I just said. And that's practiced in the Islamic culture. In certain Islamic countries, they practice stoning or honor killings. If the woman happens to have sex outside of marriage and she gets pregnant, she was stoned. Now that's very crucial right there. It's very crucial and very punishable. That was a term I wanted to look for. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Give me one. No. Okay. Well, never mind. I'll deal with the term later. So I'm gonna do a part 2 of this video after I get done. Let me see how long I've been on here. Okay, so I'm gonna do a part 2 of this because see, I want to continue on talking about the black matriarch and the African American family structure. So I'm gonna do a part 2 of this after I get done. You know, maybe tomorrow or something like that. Yeah, hold on. Let me take my notes. Okay. All right. So let's read about legitimization in Georgia. All right, in the state of Georgia. And this comes from divorce.net.com. Was it divorcenet.com? All right, so I'm going to read this. Legitimization also gives the father the right to inherit from the child and the right to petition the court for custody or visitation. What is legitimization? Legitimization is a way for a father to claim legal parentage of a child born out of wedlock, quote unquote. It goes beyond a mere acknowledgement of paternity. In Georgia, establishing paternity gives a court the power to enforce a father's duty to support a child financially, while legitimization gives a child the right to inherit from a father as well as the right to obtain family medical history on the father's side and the right to placement in the home of a relative on the father's side in the event that the mother becomes unable to care for the child. Legitimization also gives the father the right to inherit from the child and the right to petition the court for custody or visitation. Without legitimization, only the mother, without legitimization, listen very closely, without legitimization, right? Why I keep saying without legitimation, without legitimation, only the mother of a child born out of wedlock has any custody right. Without legitimation, only the mother of a child born out of wedlock has any custody rights. So that means that as a father, if you don't go and legitimize that child, mean that you don't go to court and claim your parental rights as a father, then automatically speaking, the mother's going to have those rights. She's going to have all the custody rights. So if you really want to gain custody, right, of your kid, right, you have to legitimize. You have to legitimize yourself, and you have to legitimize that child. Meaning that you have to be sure to go in that courtroom and sign your parental rights, fight for your parental rights, and prove that you are that child's father. Because if you don't go through that process, then you can't have any say-so of your kid. So that's law, and that's the law in Georgia. So if you want custody, if you want to be able to have visitation right, you have to go through the process of legitimation. That's what you have to do. And I don't know how many men have done that. I don't know how many men in our community have went through the legitimation process to gain parental rights and visitation. So here's the thing, if you don't do that, and if the court automatically say, hey, the mother has all the rights, then you can't get mad at the mother. You can't get mad at her. Because it's designed in the system that you got to do that if you want to go through the process of seeing your kids or have your kids in your custody. Other than that, the mother's going to automatically have the right, because go back to the statement, mama's baby, daddy's maybe, right? Mama's baby, daddy's maybe. So that means the child 9 times out of 10 is going to be with their mother, or be on somebody in her maternal side of the family. 9 times out of 10. So if you want to go through the process of having your kid around you, then you got to be able to take it to court. If you're trying to gain custody, right? Or unless the mother gives the child over to you. Unless the mother gives the child over to you and say the child can stay with you. Technically speaking, the child's still under the mother's custody. But that child will be living with you though. But he still, or she still, will be under their mother custody. So the mother can have the right to come and get the child at any given time, because you didn't go through the process of legitimation. You didn't go through the process of getting your child legitimized. So she got the right to say, okay, I'm going to come and pick my kid up. And if she come and pick that kid up, and the kid come back home, there ain't much you can really do about it. Now, if you have went through this process and you got your legal rights and you also got custody, then there's nothing the mother can really do. Because the child, you got joint custody, or you got full custody, rather. And you got paperwork to prove that. So she can't do anything. But outside of that, it's going to be automatically turned over to the mother. And that's just how the system works. So let's go ahead and continue on with this process. Okay. What does born out of wedlock mean? Generally speaking, a child in Georgia is born out of wedlock if the parents aren't married to each other at the time of the birth, and the child is not legitimized after the birth. If the parents' marriage is annulled after the child is born, the child will still be legitimized because the child was born before the parents separated. So the parents was married when the child was born. If the mother is married when the child is born or has ended a previous marriage less than about 9 months prior to the birth, the law presumes that the mother's husband or former husband is the child's father and the child is legitimate. If the couple conceived by means of artificial insemination after mutual ring consent, the presumption of legitimacy is absolute. So what is that artificial insemination? I guess what they call the test tube baby. You know, the whole test tube baby thing. Like if the mother cannot conceive a child naturally, by having sexual intercourse, then what they'll do is go through the process of doing the artificial insemination or get the test tube going and stuff like that. So if you've been a test tube baby, then you're considered as legitimate. So that's my understanding. Then wait a minute, let me go back and check that definition. I could be wrong. Let me go and check this definition. Okay. All right. Let me check the definition. Okay. AI is the deliberate introduction of sperm into a female cervix or uterine cavity for the purpose of achieving a pregnancy through in vivo fertilization by means other than sexual intercourse. In other words, I was correct. Test tube, baby. I was right. Test tube. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm gonna go back and finish this. The rest of this information. How is a child born out of wedlock legitimized? If the mother wasn't married at the time of birth or within the 9 months prior to the birth, the biological father can legitimize the child by marrying the mother. If the child is less than 1 year old, the biological father can legitimate the child by signing an acknowledgement of legitimation. If a mother gives birth in Georgia hospital and the hospital staff will provide the hospital staff will provide the mother and the father, if he is there, with a document that includes the acknowledgement along with a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. Both parents must sign the document, have the signature notarized, and submit the form of the state office of vital records. Either parent can consent to acknowledgement within 60 days after signing. If the mother was married at the time of the birth or within the 9 months prior to the birth to someone else other than the biological father can't legitimate the child simply by marrying the mother. Or wait a minute, hold on, I'm confused. If the mother was married at the time of the birth or within the 9 months prior to the birth to someone other than the biological father can't legitimate the child simply by marrying the mother or signing a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity due to legal presumption that the mother's husband or former husband, if they have divorced, is the legal father. Wow, that's interesting. The biological father would first have to establish paternity and then file a petition for legitimation in court. The mother's husband or former husband can't challenge the petition unless he has divorced the mother on the grounds that she gave birth to another man's child. The mother can challenge the petition provided that her parental rights have not been terminated and no termination action is pending. An adoptive parent or adoption agency with custody of the child can also challenge the petition. Jeez. All right. Overcoming the presumption that the mother's husband or former husband is a child's father is not easy and requires very strong proof. A court won't allow a mother to claim that her former husband is not the father of a child born during their marriage if she signed a divorce complaint and settlement agreement stating that he was and she and the alleged biological father knew from the beginning of the pregnancy about his possible paternity but chose to hide. Damn. Okay. Under the same circumstances, if the biological father marries the mother after her divorce, he cannot challenge the presumption in favor of the former husband if he remains silent about his possible paternity while the mother accepted child support from her former husband. Even if the mother was not married when the child was born and a DNA test established the biological father's paternity without question, he won't have an automatic right to have a court grant his petition for legitimation. For legitimation, the court will consider the best interest of the child. If the biological father delay making any effort to develop a relationship with the child or support the child financially, a court may find that he abandoned his opportunity and interest in legitimation. And this is coming from divorcenet.com. So, in all conclusion, after reading all that, yeah, that was a lot to read. This is what you have to understand. A child that's illegitimate or bastardized or a love child is going to go through a lot of difficulty with both parents, and particularly the father, because it puts a lot of stress on that kid. Because now, if the father wants to come into that child's life, depends on what state he's living in, he has to go through the process of legitimizing that child. And if he has not legitimized them, what say so do he has? How can you be in that kid's life? I know it is. See, you're playing a game of chess right here. It's very rough how the system play. This is why we gotta study these laws, and we gotta know as much as we can about these laws, because they're subject to change. And I can guarantee you that a lot of these men in our community don't know about the legitimation law. They don't know about going through the process, and some of them don't even want to go through that process. They don't want to have to go through the course and sign all the paperwork, and just so they can have the custody right or visitation right, etc. They don't want to go through those. They don't want to go through all the difficulty. They rather find a loophole, and the loophole is, all right, well, don't take me to court. Let's work this out. Let's make it where I can come and see the kid. Because I don't want to go through that court process. And after reading that, that's a lot. That's a lot that you got to do. All the paperwork you got to sign and all this paternity tests. And even after the paternity test, you may not be able to have the chance to legitimize your child because the previous husband or the previous guy was considered as the legal father of the child. And then the previous husband has the right to argue the statement or challenge the statement or whatever the case may be. It's a lot. It's a lot that you got to do. And, some of them don't want to go through that process. They don't want to go through the course and have to sign all that paperwork just so they can get their child legitimized and be in their kid life. Some of them feel like, I don't want to be there then if I have to go through that. But then there are those who really want to step up and be that responsible parent, and they're going to do whatever they can. Even if that means they have to go through that difficult process, they got to. So, I want to say this, in my opinion, okay? No child, whether the child was born into marriage or not, no child is illegitimate. See, kids don't ask to be here. They exist. They come into this world. So, based on your parents' decision, when they decide to have sexual intercourse and they conceived you, you became a part of this world. You became a part of them. So, another thing too, you can't blame that on the child. You can't put that off on the kid, because the kid has nothing to do with what choice you made. All that child knows is, I'm here and I need both of my parents. I need my mother and father. I don't need to be looked at as no illegitimate nothing. I don't need to be looked at as an outcast. And see, going into this origin history explains why there is a dichotomy in the family. Why there's a dichotomy, why, because you come to find out one sibling comes from an unmarried situation, while the other ones happen to be in the marriage. So it brings those conflicts. So those kids cannot be able to get along with each other, or be able to have some type of family structure, only because of the choices their parents made. It don't matter how you feel about the mother, or what you may feel about the father. At the end of the day, it's about your child's future. That's what's more important. Your kid is what's important at the point. So you could put aside that the father ain't shit, or the mother ain't shit, and you got to focus on that child you procreated, or those children you procreated. Because it's too many children in foster homes as of right now, as we speak, because they're being disowned by their biological parents, or because one parent turned into a drug addict and the other parent disappeared. Then you have the nerve to cry that my child don't respect me. Well, explain why your kid don't respect you. Give them a reason why. Why should they respect you? You walked out on them before you even got a chance to know them. You rejected them. So, of course, that child is not going to respect you. That child is not going to honor you. Some parents feel like their child's, they feel like they are, they feel like their children is obligated to them. So how do you expect for the child to be obligated to you when you wasn't obligated to them? How do you expect for that child to acknowledge you when you did not acknowledge them? How is that you can get away with disrespecting your own children, or put your children through a lot, and expect for them to just be submissive to you? How does that work? How do that work? They have feelings too. They have anger too. You don't expect for your child to be anything else. If you did not raise them, or if you did not take responsibility in their lives, it is what it is. It hurts. But guess what? It's a reflection of you. And then now that child gonna grow up and say, well, okay, since daddy wasn't around, they either learn from that, or either they gonna follow the same pattern. So either they learn not to do and make the same mistake that you have made, or they're gonna end up being like you. And when they become like you, you can't fault them for being like you, because that's what you have shown them. That's what you have given them. That's what you present yourself to. So either you was present or not, that child becomes a reflection of you. So anyways, I'm stopping right there. Like I said, I'm gonna do the part 2 about the black matriarch and the African American family structure. So and this one term called matrifocal. Matrifocal is when the mother is really the main person in the head of household and the father is present but he's not as active. So we're going to go into those terminology hopefully tomorrow. But I got half of it out the way, and I thank you guys for watching. I know I took too long with this, and I know I was doing a lot of reading because, again, we have to address this from a scholarship standpoint, okay? Because it's so easy to get emotional about a subject that can bring about controversy. But at the same time, it's important that we know the origins. We have to go into details. We have to go into the historical facts. And we have to speak from the historical standpoint as well, not just emotional, because when you're just dealing with the emotions, then you don't get a point across, and you can't hear the arguments of both sides, and you're not going to get a clear understanding. You're going to get a bunch of emotional reaction. You see what I mean? So I'm going to stop right here. Hopefully the next time I do this video, it will be a lot better. My presentation will be a lot more better because I was unprepared, to be honest with you. I was just browsing around looking up for the definition of this. So hopefully my next presentation, I'll be more prepared. I will be more structured, more organized, and I can be more articulating than I was tonight. So, you know, there's always room to improve and grow and things like that. But I appreciate those of you that's watching, and if you want to share this video, you're more than welcome. If you want to give your comments, you can do that, and hopefully I can come back and respond to those comments. Okay, it's not always a guarantee, but you can leave the comments on there and you can share this video. But thank y'all for watching. So I'm going to go ahead and exit up out of here. May you all have a wonderful evening. May peace and power elevation be to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. This your girl Tiffany. Deuces, and I'm out. All right.